What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. So, Congress is thinking about taking away executive authority. Surprise, surprise, folks. It's blatant hypocrisy if you ask me, but let's get into the news story and we'll figure all this out. Check this out, y'all. Trump ignites debate on presidential authority with Iran strikes and wins praise from Republicans. And once again, folks, don't never forget, just never forget that when we're reading Associated Press articles and most of the corporate press, the narrative is always, the agenda, I should say, is always Republicans are bad and Democrats, well, if we don't have to mention Democrats, we're probably not even going to mention Democrats, but they're the good guys. We're not even going to mention the good guys. We're just going to give you the evil, and that's it. So just keep that in mind. And let's read some news here. President Donald Trump's bombardment of 3 sites in Iran quickly sparked debate in Congress over his authority to launch the strikes, with Republicans praising Trump for their decisive action, even as many Democrats warned he should have sought congressional approval. Now, how many of these same Democrats said the same thing about Joe Biden when Joe Biden was making drone strikes and all this other stuff? Like Barack Obama. Have we forgotten Barack Obama is Barack Drone Strike Obama? Like, have we forgotten that that is his nickname? Did any of these people, any of them, try to spark a debate on presidential authority over the military, for goodness sakes? Right? I don't think that this is sparking a debate, because I've read this news article and there's no such phrasing in here from any of the Democrats, right? The only thing that kind of resembles that I guess that the corporate press is trying to take and reinterpret into what they want is Hakeem Jeffries. But we'll get into that. But let's keep going. Like, none of them. Like, it's blatant hypocrisy on this issue, for sure, if that's what it is. But once again, I think this is just the corporate press trying to drum up a narrative that, oh, Republicans are evil. Remember that. Oh, Republicans are the party of dropping bombs. Just remember that. And Donald Trump is acting with illegal authority. Well done, President Trump, Senator Lindsey Graham of South Carolina posted on X. Of course he would. Oh, Lord. Alabama Senator Katie Britt called the bombings, strong and surgical. The Senate Armed Forces Committee Chairman Roger Wicker of Mississippi said Trump has made a deliberate and correct decision to eliminate the existential threat posed by the Iranian regime. Existential to who, my guy? They're not existential to the United States. You cannot make that argument. I'm sorry. It would be a nonsense argument. Iran, an existential threat to the United States. Are you kidding me? Show me some proof. I would love to see that proof. Would love to see it, but they will never have it. It's funny. It really is. The instant divisions in the U.S. Congress reflected an already swirling debate over the president's ability to conduct such a consequential action without authorization from the House and Senate on the use of military force. While Trump is hardly the first U.S. president to go at it alone, his expansive use of presidential power raised immediate concerns about what comes next and whether he is exceeding the limits of his authority. But once again, were these debates sparked during the Obama presidency, during the Biden presidency, during the Bush probably during the Bush presidency, because George W. Bush... That's all I'm going to say about that. Oh, and by the way, in case you didn't notice, I threw up a map right there. Like, pay close attention to that map. I'm going to go ahead and zoom in on that map right quick. Look at that map. Okay, supposedly that's supposed to be a before and after photo, right? And you look at it and nothing looks the same to me. Like, I understand that it could be zoomed in, but I sat there and analyzed this photo and I was trying to figure out landmarks in here so I could compare to see if it was zoomed in. But to be honest with you, after going over this picture for about 20 minutes, zooming in, zooming out, zooming in, zooming out over and over and over again, I don't believe it's of the same area. I mean, sure, the color looks a little bit different. Of course, they struck the place with 30,000-pound bunker-busting bombs, which I don't know why that would really destroy the surface all that much, because they penetrate about 200 feet before exploding, which I understand it could kind of rupture the surface a little bit, but I don't see that much of a change. That's a massive change. Nothing looks the same. There are no major topographical changes that I can see, any topographical landmarks that I can point to that look similar or even close to the same. So I don't know what this picture is, but I figured I'd throw it up, and maybe some of the eagle-eyed viewers of this channel could look at this photo, and maybe you can see something that I couldn't see. There's always the wisdom of the crowd to think about. I'm just a single person here, and I can't be the only one that notices these things. Maybe I'm overlooking something. So you guys take a good look at that photo. Like I said, I'm gonna leave it up there for a few minutes before we keep going. Pause the video if you need to, but check that out. Maybe you could notice something that I didn't notice, but regardless of that, I'm going to keep going. This was a massive gamble by President Trump, and nobody knows yet whether it will pay off, said Rhode Island Senator Jack Reed, the top Democrat on the Senate Armed Services Committee. Democrats and a few Republicans said the strikes were unconstitutional and demanded more information in a classified setting. Senate Democratic leader Chuck Schumer of New York said that he received only a perfunctory notification without any details, according to a spokesperson. No president should be allowed to unilaterally march this nation into something as consequential as war with erratic threats and no strategy, Schumer said in a statement. Now, who is launching us into a war? Once again, these Democrats, some people, they just jump the gun without giving a damn about the consequences of their speech, for goodness sakes. Who is marching us into a war? Nobody. This is a single strike on 3 different sites. That's it. Nothing else has happened beyond that. What is he talking about? Why, once again, Democrats just bluster. They're delusional, folks. They really are. That's why I always call them insane. It's for statements like that bears no resemblance to reality whatsoever. Confronting Iran's ruthless campaign of terror, nuclear ambitions, and regional aggression demands strength, resolve, and strategic clarity. What do you think these strikes were? House Democratic leader Hakeem Jeffries said Trump misled the country about his intentions, failed to seek congressional authorization for the use of military force, and risks American entanglement in a potentially disastrous war in the Middle East. The quick GOP endorsements of stepped-up U.S. involvement in Iran came after Trump publicly considered their strikes for days, and many congressional Republicans had cautiously said they thought he would make the right decision. The party's schism over Iran could complicate the GOP's efforts to boost Pentagon spending as part of a $350 billion national security package in Trump's Big Beautiful Tax Breaks bill, which is speeding toward votes next week. Now, just to be clear about that would lead you to believe, or at least the inference there, is that Donald Trump is trying to increase the Pentagon budget by $350 billion. No, that's not the case, folks. They're only increasing the Pentagon budget by just a tiny little bit. A few billion, I do believe. So, once again, folks, the manipulation on this is just insane. It really is. Because, what does this mandatory spending that they have to pass, what does that have to do with the situation that's going on in Iran? Nothing whatsoever. So how is this schism going to complicate the bill? It's not, folks. It's absolutely not. But once again, this is the corporate press trying to lead you down a path of destruction, trying to make you believe that the Republican Party is in chaos, when they're not. They're absolutely not. Policy disagreements are normal, corporate press. But they don't seem to think that, because coming from the cultist mind, if you disagree, if you get out of line, if you do not march in lockstep with the rest of the cult, you're booted out. You're far right. You're a MAGA extremist. We now have very serious choices ahead to provide security for our citizens and our allies, Wicker posted on X. Is that so? House Speaker Mike Johnson and Senate Majority Leader John Thune both were briefed ahead of the strikes on Saturday, according to people familiar with the situation, granted anonymity to discuss it. Thune said Saturday evening that as we take action tonight to ensure a nuclear weapon remains out of reach for Iran, I stand with President Trump and pray for the American troops and personnel in harm's way. Johnson said in a statement that the military options should serve as a clear reminder to our adversaries and allies that President Trump means what he says. I don't think anybody doubted that, to be honest with you. But, maybe Putin was getting some ideas because Putin's kind of fallen out of line with Trump's agenda. And I know what you might be thinking about that, right? But it is what it is. Take that statement however the hell you want to. House Intelligence Committee Chairman Rick Crawford said he had also been in touch with the White House, and I am grateful to the U.S. service members who carried out these precise and successful strikes. Breaking from many of his Democratic colleagues, Senator John Fetterman of Pennsylvania, an outspoken supporter of Israel, also praised the attacks on Iran. As I've long maintained, this was the correct move by @POTUS. He posted, Iran is the world-leading sponsor of terrorism and cannot have nuclear capabilities. Man, is John Fetterman ever turning out to be a grand disappointment for Democrats? He's doing a pretty good job, to be honest with you. I don't agree on a lot of his positions. He ran as just a woke nut job, but he's turned out to be not too bad, folks. A sane Democrat, one of the very few that we have. Very few that we have. Both parties have seen splits in recent days over the prospect of striking Iran, including some of Trump's most ardent supporters who share his criticism of America's forever wars. Rep. Warren Davidson of Ohio posted that while President Trump's decision may just prove it's hard to conceive a rationale that's constitutional. Kentucky Rep. Thomas Massie, a longtime opponent of U.S. involvement in foreign wars, also posted on X that this is not constitutional. Of course he would say that. This is not our fight, said Republican Rep. Marjorie Taylor Greene of Georgia, who finally says something sane. I like Marjorie Taylor Greene, but she says some wild stuff. Right now, I say I like her because of her voting record, not necessarily because of some of the wild stuff she says, some of the wild antics she pulls. But once again, folks, you got to remember, a lot of those congressional committee hearings where they're showing, never mind, I'm not even going to mention it on this video, they're showing some stuff they probably shouldn't show, like Marjorie Taylor Greene did. Yeah, that's just all theatrics. That's all that is. Look at their voting record, for crying out loud. That's what you got to look at. Most Democrats have maintained that Congress should have a say, even as presidents in both parties have ignored the legislative branch's constitutional authority. The Senate was scheduled to vote soon on a resolution from Virginia Senator Tim Kaine that would require congressional approval before the U.S. declares war on Iran or takes specific military action. Kaine said the bombings were horrible judgment. Is that so? Was it that bad? Or is this par for the course for the past 40 years in this country where these very same people have not said a damn thing when, like Barack Obama once again, were carrying out drone strikes on a daily basis? These people didn't say anything about anything. None of that. No questions about presidential authority. As a matter of fact, probably praising the president on a daily basis for eliminating terrorists. It's all insane. It's all hypocrisy, folks. But that's what I'm here for, to point that out. Kaine said the bombings were horrible. Yeah, I already read that. I will push for all senators to vote on whether they are for this third idiotic Middle East war, Kaine said. Oh, lovely. Lovely, lovely. You gotta love it, folks. Once again, just the Congress is all theatrics, folks. It really is. Their statements, their posts online, it's all nonsense. You gotta look at their voting record. Look at their voting record. But, once again, the corporate press, they're trying to drum this up as, once again, the Republicans are bad because they're the party of war, when that's clearly not true. Look at the Democratic Party and Ukraine. But they would love nothing more. They have signed off on hundreds of billions of dollars in weapon shipments to Ukraine without the single dollar going toward peace. It has been up solely to President Donald Trump to try to call for peace in that war. None of the Democrats have called for peace. All they want regime change in Russia. So what's the difference here? One would be a lot easier to do, that's for sure. But, once again, Democrats, they're just showing this just next level of blind hypocrisy. It's like they can't see it at all. That they're putting Ukrainian flags in their profile picture while calling, Donald Trump's actions for taking out nuclear sites of Iran, of all places, illegal. But didn't say anything about any of the billions of dollars of weapons that we've sent to Ukraine and all the military intelligence we've given to Ukraine so they could destroy civilian targets. And, the list could go on, but I'm not going to get into all that. It's just, blatant hypocrisy at this point. None of these Democrats would have had a single problem with NATO striking in Russian territory or in Ukrainian territory, for that matter. They wouldn't have had a single problem with that at all. As a matter of fact, I bet every single one of them would have voted for NATO intervention in Ukraine. I can almost guarantee that. We never heard anything about U.S. involvement in the Ukraine war. Anything about opposition to U.S. involvement. We'll put it that way. Not a damn thing. They just want to send your tax dollars over there. That's it. It's fascinating to watch. Once again, folks, like I always say, every once in a while, you got to zoom out. Zoom back away from the binoculars and look at the whole situation here. See what's actually going on. You'll see a lot of hypocrisy, folks. A lot. A whole lot. But, who am I to say anything otherwise of people's opinions? But y'all let me know what y'all think about all this down in the comment section. That's all I got on this one. Y'all don't forget to smash that like button for me. I would really, really appreciate that. Share this video anywhere and everywhere you can. And hey, if you would be so inclined, I would be deeply appreciative if you would click that join button, sign up, become a member, help me grow this channel, grow this movement of pointing out manipulation by your mainstream news, folks. But y'all do all that for me. I would greatly appreciate it. And y'all try to have a good day. Stay legitical. Peace.